Some kids just don't have the brains, my sister said, eyes locked on my son. He fell silent. I sat up, looked her dead in the face and said, and some parents don't have the income, like the one whose entire grocery bill I've paid for 2 years. She froze. My mom whispered, this isn't the place. But She stared straight at my son and said, some kids just don't have the brains. No hesitation. No smirk. No shame. It was like a bullet in slow motion. I watched Leo's face change. He had just finished explaining how his coding bot had made it through to regionals. He was proud. His voice had that lightness it gets when he talks about building things, the one that always reminds me of his dad. And then Ava said that. He shut down. Just stared at his plate, one hand still on his fork. I turned to her, calm but clear, and said the first truth I'd been holding in for too long. And some parents don't have the income, like the one whose entire grocery bill I've paid for 2 years. She froze. The air in the room changed. You could hear the ceiling fan ticking overhead like a bomb counting down. My mother whispered, this isn't the place. But it was exactly the place. Because she insulted my son in front of me, in front of our family, like it was some casual observation. Like she hadn't been mooching off me for years while claiming I just got lucky with my career. She had no idea what I'd kept quiet about. So I didn't stop there. I told her I wouldn't be covering next month's rent. Or utilities. Or her daughter's private tutoring sessions that she claimed were so important for getting into the magnet school. She didn't know I knew she'd lied about needing money for medical bills. I'd found out when her ex let it slip that she'd actually spent it on a weekend at a resort in Scottsdale. Still, I hadn't said anything then. I told myself it wasn't worth the drama. That maybe she was just struggling. But she crossed the line when she went after Leo. That wasn't a jab. That was an intentional, cruel swipe at a 13-year-old. A kid who never did anything to her except exist as the nephew of the sister she secretly hated. She left without saying a word. I put Leo in the car, told him I was proud of him, and he nodded but didn't say much the whole ride home. He was quiet all night. I sat in the living room thinking about how long I'd let her get away with things. Ava had always been bitter even as kids. If I got an A, she needed to find a way to explain why it didn't count. If I got a job, she said it was because I had connections. If I bought a house, she joked about how I'd probably write it off on taxes. It was constant. But I'd never cared. I was always too busy building my life to worry about how she felt about it. Until she made it about my son. She didn't just insult him. She wanted to humiliate him. And I knew right then, if she could do that in front of me, in front of our own mother, she was capable of worse. And the only reason she ever got away with it was because I let her. So I didn't cry. I didn't call her to patch it up. Instead, I started planning. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls from my mother and a long text that basically boiled down to, "You went too far." Ava's hurt. She didn't mean it like that. Didn't mean it? She looked Leo in the eye. That wasn't a slip of the tongue. That was deliberate. I didn't respond. By noon, Ava had posted one of her usual pity rants on Facebook. Vague enough not to name me but clear enough for everyone to know who she was talking about. Something about family who dangle money over your head then act like saints. And how some people confuse intelligence with privilege. She sprinkled in a few quotes about narcissists which made me laugh. She forgot I was in half the local networking groups she was. Within an hour, 2 people forwarded it to me. One even added, "Didn't you just sponsor her daughter's scholarship application?" I had. And I'd also reviewed Ava's resume just last month, helping her land a contract gig with a client I brought in. That part made my blood boil. She was actively using the opportunities one gave her to build some fantasy where she was the underdog and I was the villain. She didn't realize the people she was whining to, those same people were in my corner, not hers. But I didn't say anything publicly. I waited. What she didn't know was that I had been quietly keeping receipts. Every fake expense, every bounced payment I'd quietly covered for her. Screenshots, forwarded emails, even her message from a year ago asking me to lie on a reference check for a job she didn't have the qualifications for. I never used any of it before. Because she was my sister. Because I felt bad she was struggling. But something shifted in me when I saw Leo sitting on the edge of his bed that night holding the robotics kit I bought him, just staring at it like it didn't matter anymore. She didn't just bruise his pride. She made him feel like his work wasn't real, like his success wasn't deserved. And I couldn't let that slide. So I called one of my contacts. a senior project manager at the very same consulting firm Ava had just started freelancing for. I didn't lie. I didn't exaggerate. I just forwarded a few things privately with no comment. I didn't even have to ask for anything. He called me back 2 hours later. Said thanks for the heads up. By the next day, Ava's name was gone from their site. She messaged me that night. 3 texts in a row. First confused. Then angry. Then accusatory. Said I was trying to destroy her life. That I was jealous. Jealous. I didn't answer. Then came the call from our mom. The same one who'd watched Ava insult her own grandson and stayed quiet. Now suddenly emotional because this was too much, and family doesn't turn on family. Except Ava turned first. And I wasn't going to apologize for protecting my son. 2 weeks went by. No contact. No apology. Not from Ava, not from my mother. Just silence, which honestly was better than the passive-aggressive messages I was used to. Leo started bouncing back. He won regionals. His teacher emailed me saying he helped a struggling classmate fix their bot instead of focusing only on his own project. That's the kind of kid he is. Smart without showing off. Kind without trying to impress anyone. But Ava couldn't leave it alone. She showed up at a school event. It wasn't even for her daughter's class. It was the county-wide STEM fair open to the public. Leo was presenting his project to the judges, and I was standing in the back of the crowd with the other parents. I spotted Ava almost immediately. Loud outfit, giant coffee cup, like she wanted to be noticed. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at him. Leo was explaining how his code detected patterns in real-time data and adjusted the bot's path accordingly. He was using words most adults in that room didn't fully understand. Then I heard her voice, not loud but sharp enough. This is what they're giving awards for now? That's adorable. It was aimed at no one in particular, but close enough to a group of parents to land. One of them gave her a look. Another checked her name tag. He smiled like she was joking. Leo looked up. He'd heard. He didn't react, didn't stop speaking, but I saw the flicker of doubt. That tiny shift in his posture. That 1 second where he forgot how proud he should be. That was it. Afterward, I asked a friend of mine, a local journalist who runs a small education podcast, if she'd be interested in doing a short segment on Leo's project. I didn't mention Ava. Just said Leo had a cool story. He was interviewed the following week. His segment got picked up by 2 tech blogs. One of his judges at the fair sent in a recommendation for a national competition. And then I made one final call. Ava had always dreamed of landing a full-time position at a particular nonprofit in the city. She'd been working toward it for years. I knew the hiring manager, not just vaguely, but well enough that we'd had lunch together more than once. She respected me, trusted me. I asked her, off the record, if she knew that one of their recent applicants had falsified references and misrepresented her project experience. She got quiet. Said she had her suspicions. Ava's interview was cancelled the next day. She texted me one final time. I hope ruining me was worth it. I stared at the screen for a second. Then I typed back. You tried to humiliate my son. You made it worth it. And that was the last message I ever sent her. It had been over a month since I'd spoken to Ava. Leo was doing better than ever. Invited to a summer robotics camp, even got a small scholarship for it. He was back to being himself again. I thought we were finally past all of it. Then my mom called. She said she had something she wanted me to see. Said it was important, and that maybe I'd understand things better after. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I agreed to stop by after work. When I got there, she wasn't in the kitchen like usual. She was upstairs in her bedroom, standing next to her closet with a cardboard box in her hands. She said Ava had dropped it off weeks ago, back when we all stopped talking. She told me she wasn't supposed to show it to me, but that she was tired of being in the middle. She handed me the box and left the room without another word. Inside were printouts. Not just emails, screenshots, notes, even photos. At first I couldn't figure out what I was looking at. Then it clicked. Ava had been trying to discredit me. For months. Maybe longer. There were copies of a fake Reddit post, made under some throwaway account, accusing a certain lawyer mom of exploiting her sister's financial issues for clout. There were comments under my company's LinkedIn posts, subtle enough to avoid moderation, but clearly meant to imply I used unethical practices at work. And there were emails. Drafts mostly. Some to my old clients, some to local school boards, Even one to a parent association claiming I was pushing Leo into programs he wasn't qualified for. They were never sent. But they existed. She had been planning something. Something big. And for some reason she stored it all in that box and gave it to our mom. Maybe to keep it safe, maybe as insurance. Who knows? But now it was in my hands. That's when I understood. Ava never just resented me. She wanted to undo me. Quietly, subtly, completely. And she used Leo, a 13-year-old kid, as a pawn to do it. I put the lid back on the box and carried it downstairs. My mom was at the table, staring into her tea like she didn't want to be part of this anymore. She said nothing. Didn't defend Ava. Didn't ask me to forgive her this time. I told her I'd be going no contact. That meant with both of them. She nodded. I walked out and haven't been back since. I knew Ava wasn't done. People like her never just stop. They wait, they plot, and then they come back meaner. But I didn't expect her to drag Leo into it again. Not this way. It was a Thursday. Normal day. Leo came home quieter than usual, said some kids had laughed at him during lunch but didn't want to explain. He gave me his phone. Said someone had sent him a video. It was her. Ava. Sitting in her kitchen, lit like a lifestyle blogger, carefully staged like it wasn't staged. The caption read, "What happens when your kid gets pushed aside by privilege?" She said it wasn't about anyone specific. But then she started describing this overachieving boy with a rich mommy lawyer, who supposedly took her son's spot in a tech program. She said kids like that were overpraised, overfunded, and underdeveloped emotionally. She even dropped Leo's first name. Just his first name. But in a town this size. That's all it takes. I watched the whole thing twice. Then again. Not to feel it, not to cry, I didn't even have it in me anymore. I was watching her unravel in real time. He thought she was clever. Thought she could spin some underdog story where she was the good guy and I was the one rigging the system with money and influence. He forgot who built the system. The video caught traction. Not viral, but enough that a few teachers saw it. Parents saw it. Leo's friends saw it. He started getting looks at school. One kid asked him if I had paid off a judge to get him into the robotics competition. I didn't even know where that idea came from, but it stuck. That night I tucked Leo in and he asked me something I'll never forget. He said, "Did I do something wrong just by being good at stuff?" I sat there for a full minute. Just sat there. And then I got up and went into my office. I didn't go online. I didn't rant. I didn't play her game. I opened a folder I hadn't touched in months. Contacts, memos, things I never used because I never wanted to. I'd always believed in helping her, not hurting her. But that's the thing about people like Ava. They think silence is weakness. They think protecting them is permission. So I stopped protecting her. Over the next few days I made some very intentional moves. Quiet, professional ones. The kind that don't make noise but leave lasting damage. First, I emailed the selection board of the city's education grant program Ava had applied to, the same one I helped shape policy for 3 years ago. I forwarded screenshots from her video, clips of her mocking Leo, clips of her referencing a falsified education history she'd included in her proposal. Then I contacted the private donor who had pledged a matching grant to Ava's pilot program. He owed me a favor. All I had to do was remind him. I sent over the same video, no extra commentary. He replied in under an hour. Funding pulled. Within a week she was quietly removed from 3 upcoming panels. The nonprofit she was consulting for? She was gone. Her name scrubbed from the team page, her login revoked. I didn't ask them to fire her. I just made sure they saw who they were aligning themselves with. And then I waited. No calls. No apologies. Not even from my mother. Which meant Ava hadn't told anyone yet. He probably thought she could fix it. Maybe she thought she could outmaneuver me. Or maybe finally she understood. Everything she built, every fake opportunity, every borrowed ounce of credibility, every connection she exploited through me, it was gone. Not because I lied. But because I showed people the truth. And she'd handed me the proof herself. I knew she'd come eventually. Not right away. Ava doesn't show up when she's angry. She waits until she's desperate. Until she thinks enough time has passed that maybe you've softened, maybe you've forgotten. Maybe she can twist things just right to make herself the victim again. It was a Sunday afternoon when she finally showed up. No call, no warning, just her standing on my porch, sunglasses in her hand, makeup done like she was going to a meeting, not crashing the home of the sister she tried to publicly humiliate. She had the same look she always did when she was about to lie and wanted you to believe it was coming from a place of love. I didn't open the screen door. She said she just wanted to talk. Said things got out of hand. That we were family. That kids get over stuff and we should too. She used that word, we, like any of this had been mutual. She never said Leo's name. Not once. I didn't speak. I just stood there. Let her talk. She said she lost everything. Said I'd made my point. That there was nothing left for her to lose. She talked about how hard she worked to get those consulting gigs. How she'd finally felt like she was building something. But what she was building wasn't real. It was a house made of borrowed bricks and stolen credit. And the second someone saw through it, it collapsed. She started crying near the end. Not loud, not dramatic. The quiet kind, the kind meant to stir sympathy. And maybe years ago it would have. Maybe when I still thought she just needed help or time or a second chance. But not now. Not after everything she said about my son. Not after trying to sabotage his future just because she couldn't build her own. Not after trying to humiliate a 13-year-old boy for no other reason than being better than she wanted him to be. She looked at me one last time and said, "You really don't care anymore, do you?" I didn't answer. I just closed the door. No yelling. No scene. No revenge speech. I just let the silence land where it should have been all along. She stood there for a few seconds, then walked back to her car. I watched her drive away. And that was the last time I ever saw her. I didn't tell Leo about it. He didn't need to know. He was upstairs working on a new coding project, headphones in, notebook open, already dreaming up his next idea. His name had started appearing on school newsletters and tech blogs. His teacher asked me if he'd be interested in mentoring younger students next semester. And for the first time in a long time I felt peace. No more handouts. No more excuses. No more walking on eggshells to protect someone who had no problem hurting the person I love most. My son's name will be known for what he built. Ava's name? It won't be on anything. Not anymore. And I regret nothing.